So I was asked about non-essential guardrails and to show some. But before I can do that, I kind of want to talk about it because it's something I've really been thinking about a lot lately. And what I have is I have three classes of non-essential guardrails, and I'll kind of describe each one of those. I'm in blaze orange because I'm out here at Misel Bluffs on the East Lakeshore Trail in East Tennessee, and it's hunting season. And I got a brown sweatshirt on, and some of these guys, if you're brown, you're down, and I'd probably be okay until they field dressed me. Um, but anyway, so I got my blaze orange hat on. I got Raleigh out here. He's well blazed out too. But the idea of a non-essential guardrail. So the person who asked, I think what he's talking about is the non-essential guardrail. And what I mean by that is this is a guardrail where it's just not indicated. There's no hazard. You're protecting a field. There's nothing there. Probably one of the saddest guardrails that I've ever found was down in Kissimmee, Florida. It was on a state highway. Somebody reached out to me who knew the victim, and he said, "What do you think of this guardrail?" And I was like, I looked at it. It was radius, no anchor. I'm nothing really too bad with it. There was a curb that I didn't like, and I responded. Finally, I'm like, I guess the big thing that jumps out at me on this guardrail is that it's not necessary. And that's when I got the feedback that a motorcyclist had gone into a slide and was killed at that location, hitting one of the posts. And so he was killed hitting a not necessary guardrail because there was no hazard, there was no reason for it to be there. So that's the first class of guardrails, and you can often see it. You're like, what's it there for? You always want to, when you're looking at a guardrail, consider what's it there for. And if you can't figure out what it's there for, it shouldn't therefore be there. The second class of guardrails is the unnecessary guardrail. You're like, what do you mean by that? And what I mean by that is a guardrail that is, there's a hazard there. And it's necessary that a guardrail be there, but the guardrail that is there is not crash worthy. It may not have an anchor. It may be too short. It might be just in a non-functional state. So it's not going to shield the hazard. And now it is only a hazard. So there we have a unnecessary guardrail. And then the last one would be an technically necessary guardrail. And what these are, I'll often see these at locations where there might be a slope, a non-recoverable slope that's running parallel to the roadway. And by definition, technically, that would be a necessary guardrail. The issue is like, and I can go and I can look and I can tell you how to point them out. So in Tennessee, there's really old pre-NCHRP Report 350, and that was published in 1993 guardrail out there. And it has rectangle washer steel spacers. It's got a certain kind of anchor. And I know it's 230 era guardrail. It was published in the early 1980s. It's a 40-year-old guardrail. And it has a brand new mash tested system at the beginning, but the rest of the rail is not, has never been damaged. So one of the key elements is crash history. If you have a guardrail that has been there for 40 years and not impacted, you may be protecting Fort Knox. There's a lot of times where you got to keep it because the hazard must be shielded. One example I saw was a pond near Oak Ridge, Tennessee that was labeled "Do Not Touch" because it was contaminated with radiation. It had nuclear warnings on it. Do not touch the water. So in that situation, you have a guardrail that in other situations may not be considered necessary but you can't afford ever to have a mistake there. But anyway, so the necessary, technically unnecessary category, I usually will find these on a state highway There might be a technical hazard that checks the box for the designer, but the actual crash history at this location is negligible or non-existent. So you have a guardrail that's been there 40 years. Is it likely to be impacted in the future? Is it worth the tens of thousands of dollars it would cost to bring it up to the current standard? Is it in a crash, 30% of our crashes involve motorcyclists. Is it more likely to kill somebody than it is to save them? And often the case, the situation is that, yeah, it's technically necessary, but it's more likely going to produce a fatality than to prevent one. The root cause of the necessary or the unnecessary guardrail, I believe, is generally what I call constituent guardrails. You might have the old mayor Pappy, and he's like, run for re-election, give me 3 guardrails, very spots south of the river. I need my constituency to be happy. Or you may have a situation where you have an object that keeps getting hit, but a guardrail is not what's indicated. And so you end up with a unnecessary guardrail. How you end up with a unnecessary guardrail is simply lack of maintenance, not replacing obsolete systems, having a system that's just too small, not anchored, whatever, like that. And while it was necessary, it's not going to work. So it's an unnecessary guardrail. And in that situation, and people say, well, is something better than nothing? Absolutely not. You want it to look as dangerous as it is. If it's not going to function, you don't want to create the illusion of safety. The other thing is you don't want to introduce another hazard into it. I'll often say, people say, well, it provides delineation. I'm like, so would putting toddlers out there, but you're not going to suggest that, are you? And then finally, the unnecessary, technically necessary type guardrail. Most of those you can blame Uncle Sugar and the federal aid program, because when we're doing a big project, sometimes those guardrails that you can technically justify, they're eligible for 80, 90, even sometimes 100, 200, and 3%. So in that situation, what ends up happening is you get all you can all you get, sit on your can and poison the rest. And so you add a hazard because somebody else is paying for it. But what you're really doing is adding an unfunded mandate to your roadside, because it's got to be maintained. So once it's there, you've got to maintain it. So I really despise how the federal aid reimbursement program is handled, because it ends up that we add a lot of guardrail that's just not necessary. It's not essential. It might technically check the boxes, but it's more likely to produce a fatality than to prevent one. So over the next couple days, what I'll try to do is I'll pin it to this comment, or to this video, but I will also pin this video and those the video showing the necessary, unnecessary guardrail, the unnecessary, technically necessary guardrail, and then of course the unnecessary guardrail. Anyways, I feel like I kind of gone through that all Laurel and Hardy, who's on first, I don't know, who's on second, I don't care, it's on third or whatever it is. But anyways, those are your 3 types of unnecessary guardrails.